Hey guys, welcome back to How to Roll Dice. I'm Josh, and for today's video, I just wanted to throw out sort of a little bit of a PSA for you, a public service announcement on this stuff right here, because recently, over the past few months, while I've been getting more and more into painting, this has kind of been the one oops that I've fallen into that was a little bit frustrating, but nothing that I can't fix, and honestly, probably more my fault than Army Painters. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of the Army Painter, not sponsored by them or anything, would love to be sponsored by them. Hi, Army Painter. And love their speed paints, have been using their primer. Now I've sort of switched over to using Krylon and Rust-Oleum because I've learned that you can use those and get just as good a coverage for priming your models. I'm going to do a video on that, or I may have done a video on that already, depending on when this goes up. But this is the varnish, the clear coat, sort of the final layer that you put on your painted models that the Army Painter makes. This is the Satin varnish. And I put that on these models here. This is my Blood Bowl team that I painted up. Now, these are models that I painted when I had just sort of wrangled the concept of using speed paints and sort of like an early version of the slap chop method that I adopted. I feel I'm much better at it now. My models are coming out looking much nicer, higher quality, brighter, poppier colors, but not oversaturated, better contrast between the lights and the darks. These don't have that. These look a little dark, a little muddy. That's on me. But I'm still super happy with how they came out compared to like anything I've ever painted in the past trying to use traditional paints. Anyways, painted these up, got them all completed, and went to go put a clear coat on them with this here, this satin varnish. Now, this is where it sort of becomes my fault, but also I'm a little annoyed at you, Army Painter. Love your stuff, want a sponsorship, little annoyed about this. This is called satin varnish. Now, anybody who's ever painted like the interior of their house before or an apartment or anything knows that there are varying layers of gloss or shininess to the paints that you choose. Matte means like no shininess at all. And then high gloss, like oftentimes you'll see high gloss white is kind of like a modern country home farmhouse style thing. And it's this super glossy, thick white paint. This being called satin varnish, satin is generally somewhere between a high gloss or a gloss and a matte, and it's generally closer to matte. It usually means just a little bit more something to it than matte. And so that's like universally, as far as I know, as far as like regular non-modeling paints goes, that's what satin finish means. It's like, you know, almost like an eggshell. Actually, I think eggshell is its own layer, but it's nowhere near gloss, right? So I get these models done, I take them outside, I make sure I follow all the instructions on this, this varnish, made sure it wasn't a humid day. I get them all set up on a little priming board, and I hit them all with this satin varnish. And 15, 20 minutes later, lo and behold, they all look like they are like molded out of solid glass. They are the shiniest things I own. You can practically see your reflection in them. You almost lose some of the color and the sort of like definition in the paint job because of how shiny they are. If there's any light source on them anywhere, they just reflect it like they're made out of stained glass. I'll give you guys a close-up. You probably can't see it very well right here, but maybe if I block my face, you can kind of see these. I know it's kind of a long shot because of how I have the camera set up right now, but super glossy, like ultra gloss. Satin varnish, really? Now, to be fair, when I bought this at the store, the game store that I was at, they have a whole Army Painter display, and this was the only varnish on the shelf. I wasn't aware that there was another Army Painter varnish called Anti-Shine Matte Varnish. Now, obviously, if I saw the two side by side, I would still be a little confused as to what the difference between satin and anti-shine matte really is, considering satin is supposed to be relatively low gloss or no gloss. But I obviously would have picked the anti-shine matte varnish because that's what I wanted. I wanted a completely gloss-free finish on my models. I wanted it to look like they were just the way that I painted them, except I wanted an extra layer of protection over the paint job, which is why you clear coat your models. I picked this up because it was the only thing there, and satin, again, to me, based off of sort of the universal understanding of what satin is, means very low shine. This is not that. This is the opposite of that. So basically, you know, my fault for not doing the research onto whether or not this is going to come out with the finish that I wanted, but also kind of on Army Painter, because why do you call this satin? I don't understand. I thought maybe I was confused, so I went and double checked myself, and I checked several different major home paint brands, like around like Sherwin-Williams, and I looked at the whole like Lowe's website, the Home Depot website, like home painting DIY tips from just random like DIY blogs around the internet. Satin does not mean gloss. It means very low gloss, close to matte, but not quite matte. This is absolutely not that. This is the opposite of that. This is insane gloss. And I can kind of tell that that's something you're aware of because you have a separate varnish called Anti-Shine Matte. This shouldn't be called satin. It just shouldn't. It should be called gloss or high gloss varnish. So just a note, Army Painter. I know you're currently in the process with your new speed paint lines that you're developing with a handful of creators online, Goobertown Hobbies. There's a handful of other people. There's the two guys. There's the young woman who does like super high contrast, super high saturation paints. Dana Hughes, something like that. Anyways, they are helping Army Painter develop a whole new section or segment of speed paints. And one of the things that were recommended that they are now planning on working into those paints is a common sense label to the name of every paint. So instead of a paint being called like, Orc Blood, and you going, what is Orc Blood and how does it compare to like Everwinter Forest Green? Like those aren't really super useful names because they're fantastical names and they sound good and they fit the hobby, but they're not really clear. It turns out there's actually kind of a universal color naming index. So like you can tell from a standardized perspective what the difference is between like an aqua blue and a light blue and a dark blue and a very deep blue. Like all of these things have sort of defined color values to them. And so they're going to be including on these new speed paints, and I'm assuming the existing speed paints when they re-release them, hopefully as one master set, which I will immediately buy the day it comes out. They're going to be including those common sense names. While we're out there relabeling colors and some of your painting products, please change this. It should not be called satin. That is a complete misnomer and confusing. And sure, if you were an experienced painter or you've been painting models and clear coating them for quite a while, you've probably learned this. Maybe other modeling companies call their high gloss varnishes satin as well. Then all of you are wrong. And you should all change it to high gloss. That's extremely confusing to somebody who's only ever bought paints from like the larger general realm of paint, like house paint, exterior paint, spray paints, things like that. Satin means low gloss, close to matte. So this is just confusing. Anyways, I hate to rant, and I certainly don't want to rant against Army Painter because like I said, they've rejuvenated my love of this hobby and created an appreciation and a joy in painting that I have never had ever in my life, other than maybe the very first model I ever sat down and painted with some concept of like technique to it, where I finished it and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. It's been all downhill from there, and I've just hated painting more and more because I've wanted to be good and I haven't been able to be good. And the speed paints make me feel like I'm amazing, even though I'm probably not. I'm loving what's coming out of my efforts. And so I for sure super duper do not want to put down Army Painter, but this is a bad labeling choice. Please fix this. That's my warning to everybody out there. This is fine. I can fix this. I can put I can get a matte varnish and put it over this, and it will cut the gloss down or remove the gloss entirely. I haven't done it yet, so I'm not sure. And I haven't varnished any other models. These were the only ones that I did with it. All the other models that I've painted since, I'm going to get either from Army Painter the anti-shine matte varnish, or I'm going to pick something up. Probably that, because again, I like Army Painter stuff. But that being said, this I can fix. I haven't done any others yet, so it's not a big problem. But I just wanted people to be aware of it. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing good, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good day.